Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you take a chance. I am so excited to share this conversation with you because this guest is doing so much incredible work, and I feel like we really only scratched the surface with this episode. Swire is an award-winning social entrepreneur and the founder of Reel It In, which is a youth-led campaign committed to raising awareness about social media addiction and fighting for ethical tech legislation. Lewis is doing some really important work, so let's dive into this conversation with Lewis Swire.
I'm Lewis Swire. I run an organization called Reel It In, which is a campaign combating social media addiction. And we do so in two ways primarily. The first is lobbying, so working with a lot of peers and MPs in Westminster to try and change law in the UK and mandate ethical tech design. And the other half of our work is called Project R, which is a digital awareness campaign to reach 10 million young people over the next year. Besides Reel It In, for the last 6 years, I've been running a series of different nonprofits and charities across different sectors. My sort of entrepreneurial journey started with a media network called The Curious Times, which we then scaled across the world. How we can use business and entrepreneurship for social good too. I also trained to be a professional ballet dancer for a year, which was sort of my academic background, and do all these other sort of like unrelated but really fun things on the side.
That is wonderful. That's a great introduction. And because I feel like we have to put this into context, how old are you? I don't ask this of everyone, but with that whole background, I just want everyone to know, how old are you?
So rude to ask my age. No, no. I'm 18 years old.
That's incredible. I think that that also provides context to all of this, that you've managed to do all of these things and you are 18, which is wonderful. I would love to know what got you interested in social impact work, in kind of doing these different ventures for good. What inspired you to get started with this? I'm sure it started at a very young age, but what was kind of that spark for you?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It did start, when I was sort of like 12, when that's when I got serious about sort of building things that I think fundamentally would benefit those in my local community at first, and really build something that provides value to those I love, and link that to a passion that I really have at different times. So with the Curious Times, because it was a media network, like my favorite subject at school was always English, and I had a big passion for journalism, and I thought, like, how could we connect that in a way that also gives a voice for young people and is very much so a youth-led organization from the ground up. So it provides opportunities to young people who I've seen and really believe in the talent of as well. Yeah, so I think that's sort of like how I got into it originally. It was about wanting to sort of build something that provides value to those I love. I think the sort of process of entrepreneurship was one that I went into blind in many ways. Like, I didn't read books on it or anything like that. I don't know if I knew what an entrepreneur was as such, but it gave me so much energy going through that creative process. It's incredibly creative, the process. And yeah, I've been sort of addicted ever since, really.
That is so wonderful. And I think the Curious Times definitely, I'm very interested in that. I feel like there's lots of synergy with why we do things and who we do them for. And I think that's so exciting to hear. Tell me about some of the work that you're doing now with Reel It In. I think that it's so interesting with Flip Gen as well. This is a little bit how I came to know your story. Can you tell me about some of that work and what inspired you to get started with that? Because I think it's of course very needed right now, but what was that pivot like for you to start doing that work with Reel It In?
Yeah, good question. I mean, firstly, FlipGen are amazing, and Paul and Elizabeth are like incredibly inspiring. So I'm really excited to get more involved with their work over the next few months as well. My sort of founding story for Reel It In is really in two ways. So I used to sit on the board of an organization called ChildNet International, and they're supposed to be the online safety regulators for children in the UK. I was delivering a speech with my partner Sammy and I. We went up for Safe for Internet Day 2024, and we had chosen, what we saw as the biggest systemic issue related to technology facing our generation, which was social media addiction, and provide a lot of evidence and research backed statistics, And then 5 minutes before we went up to our speech, our script was literally taken from us and torn up and taken away. And we were handed this heavily watered down piece of paper that didn't even mention social media addiction, which was what we were going up to speak on. And we had 5 minutes to fight it as much as possible, but there's only so much you can do without delivering a speech that is going to be taken off air. So that sort of direct experience of censorship was pretty difficult for us, and we went away and did some research and found that the very organization that's supposed to be regulating children online safety in the UK is actually funded by the big tech companies like Pinterest and Snapchat and the like. So witnessing firstly that censorship and that also level of corruption that is at play with the regulators in this industry, we were like, wait a minute, this isn't a new thing. We've seen this in the tobacco industry too, and it did not end well. So I went off and founded Reel It In as a sort of way for me to fight back, because for the last several years of building other organizations and doing sort of speaking engagements on a global scale with like presidents, prime ministers, global CEOs, I had built myself into a position where I had a responsibility to take action in many ways. So yeah, my experience with TrialNet was certainly a big motivator, as well as witnessing firsthand the impact of the addictive design of social media in our classrooms as well. Like many of my peers were struggling with mental health issues and things like eating disorders and whatnot, and it was quite clear the correlation between those mental health issues and social media, as well as the impact on the attention span and I suppose all of our future career prospects as a result.
That is so interesting. And I do think that idea of censorship and kind of having that's such a jarring moment. It's so clear that you're so passionate about it now, which is wonderful just to hear you talking about it. And of course, I get to see you, whereas the listeners just get to hear it, but you can still hear how passionate and excited you are to be doing this work, which I think is so important. Can you tell me about where you're hoping to go with some of this? You talked a little bit about the goals of Reel It In and what are kind of the next phases. Tell me a little bit more, if you can, about where you're going next with Reel It In and what your goals are for the future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm an open book. There's nothing being hidden here. One of the things I'm most excited about is we've just commissioned this new impact film to be made that we're hoping to be screened in Parliament as well, that will really, fingers crossed, convince current lawmakers or guardians of the legislation to push for this amendment that's going through the House of Lords at the moment, which is changing the age limitation of social media from 13 to 16, as well as a few other things that are in the pipeline. But that's really exciting me personally, because I'm on board with that project as like an executive producer and a producer, which means I can be really involved in the actual creative process and production. So that's targeted at the decision makers. But coming from that, we're hoping to capture an awful lot of content that can be spun up in a multimedia campaign that's actually directed towards young people. Because one of the first things we realized with Reel It In was that simply that top-down approach of lobbying is not sufficient, and we need to build a ground up sort of community of young people that are willing to welcome this legislation with open arms and actually support the changes that are being made by politicians. So that's one of the things I'm most excited for. I think the rollout of Project R is really exciting as well, because it's one of the easiest sort of quantifiable pieces of work that we're producing as well, and genuinely has the potential to change the lives of 10 million young people, and also work with some amazing brands along the way. And of course, the lobbying work is super exciting as well. Like being in Parliament is such an inspiring process. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to be excited about. It's very difficult to choose.
That's very exciting. I am so excited to follow along with all of it. And to everyone that's listening, I'll link all of this down in the show notes so you can see all of this and check it all out. Can you tell me about some of the other work that you do? I know that you work with Ashoka. Can you tell me about some of those other organizations and some of the things that you might be doing aside from Reel It In? I know that you've got so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, things are pretty crazy at the moment. There is a lot going on. I mean, just this week, the reason why I'm heading back down to London is for an event called Apolitical Day. I don't know if you've heard of it, but that is, I'm sort of representing an organization called the School of International Futures. And one of the things that we're pushing for in the bigger picture is a parliamentary committee on the future, so that decisions aren't just made in sort of a future foresight framework and a long-term vision, but also in an intergenerational manner too. Because I think If we look at a lot of the major issues that we're facing and that sort of our generation will face in the future, things like climate change, I'm going to throw social media addiction in there as well. If decisions were made in an intergenerational manner, I think we would be making them very, very differently. So that's really important work, and it's also incredibly exciting because we get to work with people like the National Strategy Group, which is this quite informal committee of retired generals and heads of civil service and ministers and people like that who are all really aligned and making decisions in the UK government that are with a long-term approach. And again, just bring it back to Apolitical Day. I'm really excited to be doing the sort of summary speech at the end of the day, which I have no idea what to expect, to be honest, because there's a debate going on with like the Prime Minister of Belgium and royal families and retired generals, all these different things. So it's extremely high level, and like I feel a little bit out of my depth in many ways, but it'll be super, super exciting work. Besides SOIF, there's also involvement in Chatham House stuff, a lot of youth advisory work as well. I mean, yeah, there's so much. I mean, Ashoka is like an amazing organization. I absolutely love them so much. Yeah, if I could promote any initiative, it would be theirs, to be honest. Their Gen C fellowship is fantastic, as well as their Youth Changemaker network as well. It really does empower ambitious young people to make positive change, not just in the UK, but internationally too. And then also my work with the Global Young Entrepreneur Society, which I founded about 5 years ago, co-founded 5 years ago. And we're running some exciting events at the Google headquarters early next year, which will be bringing together the most ambitious young tech founders in the UK and sort of connecting them with capital and expertise as well. So yeah, so much again to be excited with. It's like difficult to keep track for me personally as well.
That is wonderful. And I think you shared so many great opportunities for people and resources there for them to go check out, which is awesome. And it leads me very well to my next question. Lots of young people want to create change and make a difference, but they might not know how to get started with that work. What advice would you want to share with those people who might be listening?
Yeah, I mean, I've also just remembered something that I would add to the previous question, if you don't mind. Yeah, it's this organization called Bold Awards, and they are running this new youth category in their awards event this year. So there's a black tie gala thing in Barcelona that you'd be invited to, and yeah, I couldn't recommend applying more because that'll be fantastic and all funded and very, very good for connecting, aspiring change makers with resources and similar like-minded individuals. So that's another opportunity that I'm going to throw in the mix. As far as what was the question
What advice would you
for
want to
young
share
change
with
makers
young change makers? Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
to get started? Well, I've got to say, I think getting started is the easy part, and continuing consistently is the difficult part, which may not be what people want to hear. But with the getting started process, reflecting on my journey, I think the thing which made the biggest difference is not being afraid to ask and not being afraid to put yourself out there. Because I think, I'm sure Marcus Aurelius has some powerful quote about this, but not one I can remember, about this idea that we have this reputation already, especially as young people, that holds us back from taking risks, when in reality, if we don't take risks, then these people who we think know who we are will all be gone. In 2 generations, no one will know our name anyway. So what does it matter? You might as well take a chance. I suppose that's quite a pessimistic view of it, but the point I'm trying to make across is even if I think about one of the biggest sort of career opportunities that I got and that my business partner Daniel got, was we actually used to run a podcast as well and interviewed someone called Thierry Mallory, who's an amazing economist and ran this community called the Summit of Minds as well. And afterwards, we sent him an email saying, "Hey, look, we really like this event that you run every year in Chamonix. Can we come along?" And obviously, it was incredibly high level and pretty closed doors. And he said yes. So he took a chance on us. And I think as young change makers in particular, like young people that are really motivated to do good, people will take chances and be willing to support along the journey. So being willing to ask is a big part of that, I think.
I really enjoy talking with Lewis, especially because I think there are so many similarities in the work we're doing and the changes that we'd like to see in the world. I think the biggest takeaway that I want to highlight from my conversation with Lewis was the importance of taking a chance. If Lewis hadn't decided to just go for it and get started, all of these different campaigns and organizations he's working on wouldn't exist. You have to take the chance and go for it, even if that taking a chance is sending a message or an email to someone and asking them for advice or an opportunity that you'd really like. That's a great place to get started. So as we close out this episode, please keep in mind that change comes when you take a chance. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Lewis on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I included those links in the description. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.